Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Moa, aka Swedish Whiskey Girl, and today we're going to have a look at a Fettercairn. So this is their warehouse number 2 and the second edition, and I have just done a tasting with this, so I wanted to kind of get on this straight away and share with you because it's being released quite soon, in just a few days, and it is a limited edition of 6,000 bottles from 29 casks. It's bottled at 48.5% ABV, natural colour, non-chill filtered, and it's spirit that's been distilled in 2009 and then matured in first fill ex bourbon and first fill ex American rye casks. I haven't tried that many whiskies that have been finished in a rye cask before. I actually can't think of any straight off the top of my head, but if you know any, let me know in the comments below, because it's quite an interesting one, and I definitely think the cast character is coming through. But let's have a little closer look at it and start by having a look on the nose. Straight away on the nose, it's quite fruity, which I tend to find that Fettercairn is. Like, it has this lovely fruit pastel. The orange or the yellow ones, if I should be specific, I actually just had some yesterday, so that's why probably that's so fresh in mind. It's just, if I could isolate that aroma and have it for dessert, it would probably be one of my favourites, because I like this kind of juicy citrus, that kind of between yellow and orange flavour that you often find in candy, especially chewy candy, I think. And I also think the reason I like it so much is that that's a typical note that you can find in those first fill ex bourbon casks. It must be fun for their whiskey maker, who is Greg Glass, and his team to do these kind of expressions, because they basically just go into one of their 14, I think, dunnage warehouses and look for casks that they want to bottle and do something fun with. And this is from a warehouse number 2. It's a little bit grassy on the nose as well. And I would say on the nose, if you just gave me this, I would probably guess that it was something like a first fill ex bourbon or quite an active bourbon cask, but I wouldn't say that I find that much of the rye on the nose. Oh, and I always forget this, but it retails, or it will retail, at £55. But let's have a little taste. Sláinte Skål. This is an interesting one because I think it's quite different on the nose and the palate. The palate are much more, dry without being dry. So it has like a bitterness to it, like almost a grassy bitterness, but it also has this kind of woodiness and spice that definitely feels like a rye spice, but then it also has a licorice note, I would say. Quite a viscous spirit, but it definitely has a wood influence that makes it feel like it would be drier, but that kind of viscous sensation just makes my mouth water. A little bit of the grassiness on the palate as well, but it does have that kind of aniseed licorice notes, which I quite like in balance with the fruitiness that is underneath, because it's still the Fettercairn spirit. And I actually think what I would love to do with this one is to pair it either with fruit pastels that are the Maynard's fruit pastels, maybe. There's a specific brand that I tend to buy, which is really popular here in the UK. Or with salted licorice. In Sweden we have djungelvrål. I think in Finland they have salmiakki, which I think is a candy as well as a liqueur. I have more experience with the liqueur, I must admit. Also because I used to absolutely despise licorice, but lately my brain has just kind of swapped, like, what's it called? Like, switched something in my brain. And now I think I like salted licorice. Maybe even more so if I pair with the dram. And I don't know why, but it's something about this whiskey that feels, I think it might be that kind of viscous fruitiness meets drying kind of woods, slightly grassy bitterness, rye spice that just needs salt in my head. But this could also be that it's been quite warm in here and I've just been swimming for about an hour, so maybe I'm just craving salt. That could be a natural explanation, but I also think this whiskey in Djungelvrål sounds delicious. It's so funny though, because on the nose you don't get anything of that at all. It's just dressing up as like, oh, I'm a nice, like, first Willig's bourbon cask. You love me. And then you try it and you're like, oh, I'm something different. But it's still very intriguing because I think sometimes when you get something on the nose and it's quite different on the palate, it just makes it more exciting. And in the tasting, it was quite interesting because a lot of people had different perceptions. Some people thought it was quite fruit forward even on the palate, and then there was some other people that said that kind of aniseed licorice. So yeah, it's fun. I'm just trying to look on the nose, see if I can find any of that kind of rye character coming through. I almost feel like I'm looking too hard and trying to imagine things, but I do get it more on the palate. And I also think this would be a whiskey for people that might like that kind of woody character. Some people find that in Balvenie. I tend to find Balvenie as being quite wood forward in the flavours. So if you like something like that, that has this kind of robust, almost classic, I think for a lot of people when they think about Scotch, they think it's that kind of wood flavour that is classic Scotch flavour. And this definitely has it, but with a slightly different rye spice, and then it has that kind of grassiness, and underneath is this kind of Fettercairn fruitiness. A lot of people describe it as pineapple. Today for me it's more like green apples for some reason. Green apples and fruit pastels. And on the nose, it's definitely that kind of chewy candy sweetness that hits me. But I wouldn't say the palate is that sweet at all. Definitely an interesting one. I mean, I'd love to hear what you think. Have you tried the first warehouse edition, or is this something that sounds intriguing to you? Let me know in the comments below. And I hope you've enjoyed this video as always. If you have, please feel free to leave a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing if you haven't already. And as always, I want to say a massive thank you to my wonderful supporters on Patreon. I'm so grateful that you guys want to continue to support me on my whiskey journey. And of course, I have also put my affiliate links in the description here below if you want to use them next time you're shopping with Master Malt, the Whiskey Exchange or the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. But I hope you've all had an absolutely lovely day. Sláinte Skål.